Welcome to the Masonic Drop-in Clinic, with a special welcome to those of you who are joining us for the first time. We've been doing these for a couple of weeks now, and they're proving to be very popular and useful for people as well. Although I think some of them some people just use it as an opportunity to see some friendly faces that aren't in the same four walls as them. At the beginning of the talks, I like to just take you through a couple of bits and pieces to do with the controls for Zoom, and hopefully that will help make your experience a little bit better. And then I'll hand over to Paul and Eric, who will talk about the care system and specifically what they're here to do today. So if you'll just bear with me 1 second, I'll talk you through some of the basic controls. So if you're using a PC or Mac, in the top right-hand corner, you'll see a button which either says Gallery View or Speaker View. If you click it, you can focus on just the person speaking, or you'll be able to see up to 25 people at once. You can scroll through all those pictures using the arrows which appear when you hover the screen to either the left or to the right. You'll notice a green rectangle around the person speaking. In the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see a microphone icon. This is where you can mute or unmute yourself. Also along the bottom, you'll see the participants and chat buttons. If you click on the participants button, a list of all the participants in the meeting, all 152 of them, will show up. And if you hover over your name and click more, you can change your display name. So you can rename yourself from Barbara to Bob. And you can also put in your lodge or chapter number if you so wish. At the bottom of that list, you'll also see 3 dots. And if you click on that, you'll see the option to raise your hand. And that will indicate to me that you wish to ask a question. You can also do this using the reactions button on the main bar. However, please bear in mind that if you're waving at me or using the reactions button, I do have 7 screens to scroll through of people in front of me. So I may not necessarily spot you straight away. The chat function is available for you to ask questions via text, and you can type them as we go along, and you can ask questions there, make comments, and we'll address those at the end of any presentations. If anything desperately needs looking at, I'll interject as we go along. If you're using a tablet or iPad, the speaker or gallery view option is on the top left-hand corner, and you'll be able to see a maximum of 9 people on the gallery view. If you look at the top right-hand side, you'll see 3 dots with more underneath them. If you click on those, you can rename yourself, access the text chat, or raise your hand again, which will show up in the participants list. If you're using a smartphone, you can swipe left or right to switch between speaker view and gallery view, and you'll be able to see up to 4 people at once. If you just tap the screen and select the 3 dots in the bottom right-hand corner, that's where you can rename yourself, join the text chat, or rename yourself. So those are basic controls. I'm sure you'll find your way around eventually. I've no doubt that a lot of you have been using Zoom throughout the course of the lockdown period, or some of you will have done with friends and family. If you're feeling ambitious or playful, you can select your own virtual background. I notice that somebody is already at Anfield, and a couple of people are in lodge rooms, and Mike Beasley is joining us from Villa in Spain. At least I think he wishes he was there. So you can have a look at the virtual backgrounds if you wish. In general, I'd ask that you keep yourself muted. As much as we'd like to hear people discussing their dinner options with members of the household, it can be a little distracting. So if you can just keep yourself muted whilst the people are talking. Like I say, if you do want to ask a question, or interject in any way, there's 161 people in the room at the moment. So it would be good if you could raise your hand or indicate as such, rather than just chipping in. And like I said, please bear with me. I'm doing about 4 things at once at this point in time. So I hope that I've managed to keep up with everything that I need to do. It's a bit different to having 30 odd people in here. So thank you very much for joining us. Those are the basic controls. The purpose of these afternoon meetings is very much to offer a forum for people to be able to interact with us at the provincial office, but also some of the key provincial teams during the suspension and lockdown period. Obviously, we've been suspended since the middle of March, but that doesn't mean to say that lodges have been very active in engaging their members and everybody associated with the lodge, friends and family, in keeping them lively and, like I say, engaged with the operations of the lodge, even though the lodge can't meet in person. And we heard a couple of weeks ago from Stuart Cranage, who's had some really good ideas from that. And last week, Barry Dickinson talked us through some of the provincial communications which have been going on. And I'll mention it now. I'll mention it again at the weekend, at the end of the chat. Tomorrow, there'll be the next West Lancashire Nuggets email going out. And that will be going out to all the brethren directly. So we're very much conscious that we need to keep in touch and engage with people, more so now than when the province is functioning normally. And this is one of the forum that we're using. And we've tried to offer some kind of curated program. Curated is probably a very stretching it a bit, but we're trying to offer some kind of cohesive program that's engaging for secretaries and scribes, but also other officers of the lodge and indeed brethren in general. So today we're going to be focusing on the care system. It's nice to see that there's quite a few almoners joining us today. So thank you very much for that. Thank you for taking the time out from your busy-ish, probably slightly less busy than they would have been schedules. So thank you for joining us now. I'll introduce Paul Broadley, who's the new Provincial Grand Almoner, who took over on the 1st of April from Eric Hart, both of which are here in the chat, and I'm sure both of which are eager to explain what they've been doing recently, but also talking about the help and assistance which is available to all sorts of brethren throughout the province, and not just the kind of typical people that we associate with needing care or assistance, but looking at maybe some of the younger brethren, their families and their requirements as well. So I will hand over to Paul and Eric now. I'm just going to unmute them both. Paul and Eric, thank you very much for being here. I'll let you get on with and do your thing.
Good afternoon, Reverend. Thank you, Andrew, for that nice entry. I hope you're all well, and it's good to see you. There is something wrong with my computer. I don't know what it is, but we had a meeting yesterday, and I understand that the disconnect between my mouth and what's coming out of my mouth, and it's slow. At the moment, I'm waving, but I put my hand down a couple of seconds ago, so I apologise. Yes, as Eric is here, and the province is very lucky, and I'd like to thank Eric for all the hard work that he's putting in, even though he was the almoner last year and I'm the new almoner this year. Without Eric, we would have been struggling at this awful time. There's also in the chat room, and I noticed there's 168 now, there's Alan Riley somewhere on one of the screens. He's the new deputy, and he's sort of from the Liverpool area. But basically, brethren, we're doing okay. As you know, there are two schemes running at the moment. One is the care structure, which is Eric's and my responsibility and Alan's responsibility. And the other one is the provincial welfare plan, which came about at the beginning of the lockdown, if you will. That was decided to run separately from the care structure because of all what's going on in the structure itself. We have at the moment at least 160 volunteers who are able to go out and assist those people who are sort of vulnerable, really at risk, and shouldn't be going out at all, might even be in for a 12-week lockdown. So the system is running well, and we're about possibly there's another two in the whole of the country that are doing something similar. So again, West Lancashire are leading the way forward. Some of the lodges are doing their own thing, specifically up in, say, the Furness group and the Lancaster group. They have another system running in conjunction with the welfare plan, and that's working. Down in the Liverpool area, the university scheme, University Lodge, they have got volunteers, basically redundant students at the moment, who are going out, and they're doing a marvellous job. They're also helping people who aren't attached to Masonry, and that's quite commendable. What I would not like to do really is not talk about anything specific. You may have people within your own lodges that at the moment could be contacting you and saying, well, what's happening? I've not had anybody round to see me, or my time for a grant is due for renewal, or whatever. That isn't going to happen. From London, we've been told that nobody goes to visit anybody. But our main person who does most of the work is Elaine Hanson. She works for the MCF, and she's really a star at the moment, because she's getting in contact with the people that we believe might need assistance and could be worrying. If people were getting assistance from MCF and indeed West Lancashire Freemasons Charity, then we're taking it that they haven't changed, the circumstances are the same, and they will continue to get assistance, be it medical, financial, or whatever they're lined up for. So things are running quite smoothly. What we are concerned about is possibly when all this is over, what the backlog is going to be. And I would imagine that we are going to be working, the almoners are going to be working quite hard after lockdown is released. For those that don't know the care structure, we have two groups. One are the group almoners or care almoners. There's about 20 of those, and they effectively are responsible for a group or a geographical area, and that can sometimes cause problems. You may say, well, what's this guy doing here? He's not in our group. But we look in conjunction with London at geographical areas. So you've got the care officer, pastoral care officer, or the group almoner, who would look after the day-to-day almoners. Above those guys are the admin care guys. It's about 20 of those, and they're the guys who have been trained by London. London came up to us because we're quite a large province, and those guys were trained up to be able to complete the form so that there's a satisfactory completion and rejection, if you will, because a lot of people would, in the old days, might have filled in forms hoping that they were going to get assistance, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So the admin care guys are the ones who really everything focus, they act as a fulcrum, and they will decide, yes, it's worth pursuing a case, or no, it isn't. Ultimately, anybody can put in a claim, and it would be London or West Lancs Charities who finally make the decision. Now, I think Eric wants to say one or two things, and I don't know, how does it work, Andrew? Is Eric's obviously listening, I hope. Yes, I can't, oh, there he is. Eric, do you want to take over for a bit and just talk to the lads?
Yeah, just continuing that vein, I mean, 5 years ago, things were moving quite smoothly when Ernie Greenhouse put in the new scheme, really. We called it a link in the chain, and most secretaries will remember Ernie going round from around the province, basically with a presentation with the future of care. And at that time, he brought in pastoral care officers, and he brought in the admin care officers, as you said. There are actually now 18 pastoral care officers, now called group almoners, and I'll come on to that in a moment. And we've got 22 actually admin officers who actually do the completion of applications, reapplications, etc. in the last 2 years, so, you know, the scheme had moved on quite well for 2.5 years, 3 years, but we noticed, particularly when I was speaking to the people at the West Lancashire Freemasons Charity, Alan Riley in particular, who's on today, and he can come in later, probably, Alan. And it seemed to me quite obvious that there were some areas within the province that were not needing any help in any way, shape or form, no matter, you know, what sort of, whether they were widows, whether they were, you know, the elderly, or whether they were the youngsters. We were not getting some help, or some, we're not getting any applications for help. And if I take another area, and I'm going to name names a little bit, not for any reason of showing anybody up or anything like that, please don't take it wrong, but if I take Southport, which is quite an affluent area, generally you would suspect, and yet the claims record, when we look back through the West Lancs records and through the Masonic Charity Foundation, was getting quite a good slice of the money that was coming to the province. And yet if I took Widnes, Wigan, St Helens, one or two of the more central industrial towns, you would think that they would be probably making more applications than Southport. And it was quite the opposite. And in fact, Widnes had none applicants from Widnes area for 2 years going, 2 years running. Now, that cannot be right. And this was pointed out to me that, you know, we didn't have a record and a league table, but it was pointed out, and it was quite obvious that something was not right. And what it was, we had the pastoral care officers sometimes A, doing the wrong job, and B, not doing the job at all. And so we had to look at that. And if I take, and I'll take Widnes again and Wigan area, but certainly Widnes, because Widnes, Warrington and St Helens were one group. As far as the assistants were concerned, there was one assistant over them. Anyway, cut a long story short, when we looked at it, Michael Hamilton, poor, bless his soul, who was the pastoral care officer at the time, was overworked because he had a full-time job, full-time occupation. He was on shifts and he lived in Northwich, and he was trying to look after places over Prescott, you know, the St Helens group, or Warrington or Widnes, and it was impossible. And so we decided last year that we would recruit 3 new pastoral care officers, 1 for Warrington, 1 for St Helens and Prescott, and the 3rd one for Widnes. So we'd make them independent and not one group. We'd look for help within that particular region and see if we could in fact have a look and see if there were any claims that were necessary. And that's what we did. And we changed the name from pastoral care to group care officers. So they come under the group, they come under the group chairman, and it made it so much easier in the recruiting part, but it also, I think, has a little bit more stature as a group care officer. They're still doing pastoral care, they're still doing the very job they were doing at the time, but because we've got 3, obviously, the almoners are there under them, not under them directly, but certainly come under their care as pastoral care officers. We also decided to trim down some of the admin care officers because some areas were not getting any claims in, and some of the care officers were not called upon to do any admin care, which cannot be right again. And so we've trimmed that down a little bit. And if you see this year, when you see the yearbook in October, when it comes out for us all to see, you'll notice that I've not gone on the postcodes, but I've gone on areas like Liverpool North, Liverpool Central, Liverpool South, and then everywhere else individually. If I take my own, Preston will have one on its own. It used to be Robert Stafford, as we all know. It's going to be Robert Irwin. on this occasion because Robert Stafford has passed, had decided to not discontinue with the job and continue with other ways. Anyway, cut a long story short, we have 18 of admin care officers and we're all reasonably busy and we're getting a lot of claims in. And if we take last year from the Masonic Charities Foundation and we take what the West Lancashire Freemasons charity has sort of put in the pot, we actually from the MCF, the Masonic Chair Foundation last year, the claims, or should I say, the applications and the support for health, education and daily living allowances, we got £790,000 in our province. And then that was topped up to over £1 million by the West Lancashire Freemasons charity. So all in all, we're doing a lot better, if you will. And there are weaknesses, and obviously we'll look at that as time goes on, because I've got a little bit more time now to do that, with Paul getting on with the actual job in itself as care officer for the province. So that's the way we structured it. So you will see new handbooks. We used to have that one with the link in the chain. We're going to have that updated. And we've still got the Masonic Charity Foundation handbook. So the care officers are well looked after that way. But more importantly, the almoners now are looked after by the Masonic Charities Foundation. Because if an almoner goes online and gets it up, you'll see there's a section just for almoners. And it's amazing what's on that line, what you can pick up. Fact sheets on all sorts of things, like debt, like drugs, like loneliness. 8 or 9 different fact sheets, and on there's a lot of vital information which we've never had before, but now we have. And the Masonic Charities Foundation are investing a lot, not in money, but in time to do that for our almoners. And I think that really is where I would like to cease there, unless Alan or Riley or Paul would like to come in on that, and we can pursue it then with respect to a little bit more information on what we expect of almoners and perhaps what they expect of us. But thank you for that, Paul.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks very much. Nothing is perfect, and the care structure is not perfect. Since its creation, really, it's been evolving. We do have a situation whereby we've got 400 and odd craft almoners and about 150 odd chapter almoners. And we've got, as Eric said, 18 lads who are pastoral care officers, group care officers, and then we've got probably about 20 guys who fill the forms in, admin care officers. That's good, that is working. But regretfully, where we're falling down is at the base, and it's the almoners. The lodge almoners, regretfully, are doing the role that we would like them to do. Now, that could be my fault. It could be the fact that we've not trained them up. It might be various other reasons. Up until Christmas and just after Christmas, I don't, some of you may not know me. I don't know everybody that's on my screen here, but there's 168 of us at the moment. But I'd want to meet the most of you in the next few years. I went south, and they do say, oh, you're going south. Now, the south for me is really south of Preston, Wigan way, if you will, and meeting people I don't know. But likewise, down in the south, there are problems. As Eric has just said, we were quite shocked at people not actually claiming for things we knew that they should have been entitled to. So what I hope to do is to try and touch the lodge almoners and arrange meetings with the lodge almoners, probably 20, 30 at a time. What the best thing about masonry is apathy. Some of the almoners have put the collar on because there's no one to fill the position. some of the almoners got the job because there are very few numbers in the lodge. But when the address to the almoner is given, it's one of the most important jobs in a lodge, apart from obviously yourselves, the secretaries, and the DC, and of course the worshipful master. But it is quite an important job, and that's really what we're about. When we go around with the plate in our hand and what have you, you put your money on and you think, oh, I don't know about it. And I noticed that Phil Preston's here as well, and Phil and I have been talking about things leading up to me going into the chair, and we will probably get together and try and come up with some other ideas. But what I want to try and do is to encourage the grassroots, the almoners, to start participating. It might be that they're an almoner by default, and that's something as secretaries that you really want to be giving advice to, because anything like my lodge, the secretary really rules the roost. You know, we've an installation coming up in November. Are we having it or aren't we? Well, he comes along and says, well, we're not having this, that and the other. He tells us, the DC and the WM. So you are the guys that really run the lodges. And I would hope that we start looking at the almoner in a different viewpoint, to say, oh, it's just a collar, put it on, you're okay. You might get provincial honours if you're an almoner as well, that might run with it. So I want to try and visit as many of the groups as possible, with the permission, of course, of the group chairman, and try and build up from the bottom. I'm quite open now for anybody to come forward and ask questions on my thinking. Am I going right? Am I going wrong? Am I a cocky beggar? You tell me. How does that work, Andrew? To everybody now.
Everybody can now unmute themselves. So if anybody has any questions, they can unmute themselves, stick their hand up, and I'll try and go through them. But one thing I will do just before that is you pointed to the resources that were available for almoners that are available online. I'll just show you the MCF website. So this is the MCF main website. If you have a look at the resources here across the top, you've got almoner resources, which has the almoner's guide and booklet, fact sheets, all this kind of thing, some videos as well, briefing documents. The self-isolation toolkit is also new. That's available on the MCF website. So all these are good things to be looking at within the MCF website. It's a really good resource for almoners, and I'm sure Paul would encourage people to be looking at that and making use of those resources the best they can. So that's just mcf.org.uk. I think that's probably a good place to start, and then we can have a look at the. So let's just get the chat up, and people. I'm just going to have a look and see if there are any hands up. There aren't any electronic hands up, but I'm just going to have a flick through. So just wave if you want to ask a question. Alan Hurst, if you can just say hello and maybe say where you're from.
Hello, I'm the almoner from Rockhaven and Horwich Lodge, based out of Ridgemont. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes.
Can you hear you, Alan?
Right, you can hear me, good. I'm just at the beginning of the year, I did quite a lot of work in getting permission off all the widows to, because of the new data protection business, and I got them to sign the forms. Either they wanted their details keeping or they didn't. What has happened with that? I know because of the pandemic, we will have a problem there, but is the province now going to be in touch with the widows directly? Because I think that was the idea some years ago, and Eric will remember that we've sent several lists of addresses of widows in the past, and nothing ever happened. But
yeah, well,
what I'm saying now is, are you going to be in direct contact with the widows after putting them lists in?
It's twofold that, Alan, and it's a very good question, and I'm pleased you've raised it. we have amongst us some barrack room lawyers who, are you the secretary of the lodge, Alan?
No, I'm just the almoner.
You're the almoner, right. Well, the situation is that, yes, we do want all that, we've got about over 3,000 widows.
Paul, you're breaking up.
Right. Eric, well, I'll carry on. If it gets bad for me, Eric, you interrupt.
Yeah, no
We've
problem.
got over 3,000 widows, and we didn't get the response back from some of the lodge almoners on the basis that they're not giving a list of their widows away. It was data protection and this, that, and the other, and you're not having it. It belongs to the lodge. We are nearly there, and we will get there. It's twofold. One, it takes the work off the almoner, because, as you know, Better Lives, the magazines that come from London and the like, it will be delivered directly to the widows, come through the post. We're making the contact. It saves the almoner from actually going there. That, again, is a shooting yourself in the foot, because those guys who I haven't met yet, who are refusing to do on the basis of data protection, I'm going to meet with them. I'm going to say, carry on. We don't want your list, but here's how many widows have you got? 24 or whatever, 12. Every time you get 12 of those, I want you to go and personally deliver it to those widows, because that's what we're about. We want you to make contact with them. But if you want to give us the details of your widows, we will gladly take it and send it to London, and it will be on our own database as well, so that we can communicate. One of the ironic things is, with what's gone on, and I was involved in the provincial welfare plan, is that Peter Taylor came to me and said, right, Paul, have you got your list of your widows? And I couldn't give it him. I just couldn't give it him. And it's basically on the fact that some people are relying on not providing it with the data protection. We didn't want to give him half a list, we wanted to give him the full list. But if it wasn't for this, that would be something I would be banging on the almoners' doors who haven't given us the information and asking them why and having the chat with them. Because if they don't want to give it to us, I'm happy. But provided they distribute the 12 or how many magazines they get to their ladies. I go in Masonic halls, and we band them up to our, before we went on data, trying to get them on the data register, we used to dish them out to all the provincial care officers, and they would distribute them to the lodges. I used to go in some of the lodges and still see them. Maybe 4 or 5 weeks later, a lodge almoner hadn't collected them. So it just shows they weren't doing the work that they should be doing. But I thank you, Alan, and rest assured that that list will come to fruition. It will go to London so that we've got direct contact with MCF, and also that we have it as a province. I mean, it's ironic, we don't have a list of our widows. And indeed, brethren, it's not just widows, it's brethren as well that are on the roll. I hope I've been able to explain that to you, Alan, without disjointed. Yeah.
Alan, we'll come back to you in a second. I've just got a couple of other hands up here. Peter Mann and Ian from Sincerity Lodge will come to you in a second. I've got a question from Tony Christie, who's asking, is there a recognised course that an almoner should go on? Paul?
Oh, sorry, I didn't get any of that.
Is there a recognised course that an almoner should go on? Or can you point people in a good place for basic...
Any new almoners, the pastoral care or the group care officer will train them up to what is expected of them. I mean, I've been an almoner for probably, I don't know, 14, 15 years. And at that time, we used to distribute money. We did everything. The almoner's role has now been reduced, and it wants to be reduced even further with the likes of Alan getting the list of all his widows. All that we really want them to do is to go and see the ladies. Because as we know, you hear about Silverline, Esther Ranson, the thing that's our widows and brethren want is company. So a knock on the door from an almoner would be fantastic. And that almoner would be trained up by the pastoral care officer or group care officer.
We'll go to Peter Mann now, who's the group care officer from, I can't remember which group now. Peter, you should be unmuted. Do you want to go ahead?
Yes, good afternoon, Paul and Eric. The thing is, I say I'm a group care officer for Blackpool and North Fylde, and the thing is about once a year we always have a training meeting or a get-together with all our almoners where we have a chat and distribute booklets and everything else to them. And any new almoners that we get, we always like to say to them, you know, we give them the booklet if we can, if we're there, if we can get to the installation. But we always say, we're here for any assistance that you require, we're here to give it to you. And the thing is about it, and we're only a phone call away. I'm very lucky that I have the almoners that I look after, which is nearly 50, are absolutely all very, very good. And the thing is about it, they do their job as best they can. And as Paul said before, a lot of almoners are given the job because perhaps they know everybody in the lodge. They're the older brethren, but we could do with much younger brethren to be the almoner and start training along to get along. And if you're an almoner and you're thinking about retiring, if you want to call it from that, if you have your successor to actually take him along with you and introduce him, that's the other thing, getting to know the widows. So the thing is about it, there is training available if you want to call it that, but the group care officers are there to assist you as an almoner. And there's quite a few of my almoners on, I've looked, and the thing is, it's nice to see them that they've all come on. I sent out an email to them yesterday saying that there was this meeting and to actually get on it, because I know it came out from the province, but I've sent it out to them as well. That's all I've really got to say, is that the thing is about it, if you need any assistance, your group care officer is the guy to go to, and he will direct you.
Thank you, Peter. Ian from Sincerity Lodge, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, just a quick one, really. It's about, again, about the almoner. I'm the secretary for my lodge in Sincerity. I'm also a Wigan Group publicity officer. But one of the things I've noticed through my Freemasonry is that almoners tend to be, it's a bit of a black art. It's kept very much under their own little wing and not shared. And I think in this day and age now, perhaps if the secretary's got him more involved via province through to the almoners in a particular lodge, you might get a bit more feedback.
Okay. Well, I think that's something that to bear in mind, Paul, that communication to the secretaries as well as
well,
almoners.
Well, that's quite interesting. Communication, yes, we used to, in the days of Ernie Greenhouse, we used to have quite regular meetings with almoners or go to lodges as well, and we used to hand out literature and the like. Regretfully, that literature used to stop him for a brother's case and never be shown to his wife and the like. But yes, communication, Ian, is the way forward, and it's something we will take on board. I presume you're from Sincerity Lodge and you're not Ian Sincerity. You're coming up on my screen as Ian Sincerity. Yeah, right, I've got it.
Michael,
yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, no, it's all right. No, that's quite right. Yeah, it's here. It's in Sincerity in Wigan. Sorry.
Michael Dickinson. I don't know where you are or where you're from, but you're muted. I'll come to you in a second, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Lovely. It's Mike Dickinson, Admin Care Officer for Blackpool and the Fylde. I'm going to change the subject slightly, and it's a question of either Paul or Eric. Stuart Cranage last time we spoke brought to our attention his concern about the younger members of the lodge or chapter that are out of work or are being foliaged. Have the MCF or the West Lancs had an increase in applications from these younger brethren?
Go on, Eric, if you want to answer that one.
Yeah, no problem. No, to be honest with you, considering what we're going through at the moment, I would have expected far more than we have. We've had one or two of the younger end who've applied, but in all honesty, you wouldn't think so. It's you know, and I can count them on one hand that I'm aware of that's come through the system asking for help. Of those 5, maybe, one of them was a health problem rather than a financial problem. And I think 3 of the other 4 were because they'd been furloughed. and they hadn't got the money from the government, and the government at that time hadn't set up their 80% of whatever money that is. So there was only one really that seemed to be in some sort of trouble that we could help. But the one to ask there is probably Alan Riley, because Alan takes the brunt of, with Peter Mann, funnily enough, in the West Lancashire Freemasons charity office there, and they would know more than I would. Over to you, Alan.
Thank you. Just to reiterate on what Eric was saying, we're getting an awful lot of applications as such, inquiries, but it seems to be once they realise that we're not just going to take a verbal application off them. We will do that, but we need evidence, because we've got to justify what we give out to the Charities Commission. So although anybody, it doesn't matter who it is, if there's somebody self-employed or whether they're furloughed, if they're in financial difficulty, they can come to us. But there are disclosures that need to be made. And when these disclosures are made, then we can make a decision. But we can't, if necessary, we can speak to them over the phone, fill the forms in over the phone, and get their verbal evidence, even if we can't get it. If for some reason they can't get us some physical, like an email or a scanned PDF or something like that we can use. So we can do it that way. But the evidence has got to be, eventually it'll have to be fulfilled. So, a lot of the people, I've had a few on, and they've said, whatever the job is, the self-employed, normally a one-man band of some kind. I don't want to go into too much on it, but a one-man band of some kind. And what they will do is they'll say, listen, I've got no money coming in, I need this, I need that. And I'll just say, that is brilliant. I'll send you the form. Have you got means to scan an email? Yeah, I've got all that. Send them in. And when they see what they've got to do and fill in, these tend to come back and say, oh, I'm all right. I don't really need it, because they don't want to disclose a lot of the stuff. But we are, and the MCF are fully open for business. We've got teams in place, myself and Peter and others, for applications, grant exec team for making decisions, treasury team for making the payments. We can turn them around in a day if somebody's in a desperate situation, which we have done, and some of them are decent numbers. So we are there. And once again, now, because we've got a captive audience of a lot of almoners, everything, the anchor, what Paul was saying, he was saying something before about the link in the chain and this, that and the other, but that chain is anchored, and the anchor for that chain is anchored to the almoner, because it's the almoner that we need to be looking at. The almoner, and most of the almoners I've dealt with, I've been doing this nearly 20 years, and most of the almoners I've dealt with, either as an LCO or a regional care officer in the past, they've all been doing the job correctly. I've got nothing to say about any almoner who I don't consider to be doing the job properly. They've always done the best. And at that time, when I was dealing with most of them, they were having to go out, fill the forms in and deal with bank accounts. They don't do that now. It's just simply, let us know. That's all you have to do. So if you let us know.
Thanks, Alan.
Andrew?
Just bear with me 1 second, Les.
Andrew?
Just bear with me 1 second, Les.
Okay.
Alan, can I just follow up on that? I mean, is that something that we can help in terms of the communication and managing the expectation of somebody that maybe phones up for help in that situation? In terms of that, it's not just going to be a phone call and here's the money, yes, take it. Is that something that we can help do in maybe looking at some of the nuggets communications that's going out? And perhaps that's something we just need to have a conversation about away from here, looking at the process behind that kind of thing.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but what we've always looked at is if there's something that you're not certain of whether you can get something, put your application in anyway. Yeah. Because the worst thing that can happen is we say no. What worries me more is people won't apply if they think they've got all this to do, and once they've made the initial contact and they speak to somebody, whoever it is, normally maybe because the phone's diverted from the office, so they've only got to ring the office and they'll get me. So if they speak to me, I will explain what's needed, and and if I can help them, we always will. We're not there to say no. But you know, you've got, it's like everything else. You've got to qualify for it. We can't just, you know, we don't want people phoning up saying, "There, I need this. Can you give me it?" And that's not going to happen. You know, if somebody's got an issue, then we'll deal with it. We'll process it in the normal way, and then we'll say, right, we can do this. Is whatever it is. You know, so.
In practice, you know, somebody's fridge freezer blows up in the night and all the food's gone off, and they need a new fridge freezer. You can turn something round in a day if they meet the criteria. Quite
easily, yeah. Okay. Well, when they say turn it round in a day, we can process it in a day, but everything's paid through backs. So we can have the payment made the same day, but when they get it in their bank depends on the bank. Sure. Les, I'll come to you in a second. Craig Foster, I'll come to you in a second. Mark Holloway, you had your hand up.
I just wondered, Andrew, whether it would be worth you showing the brethren the care area and perhaps the West Lancs Freemasons charity area on the new provincial website. There's download areas on both of those with lots of information and documents and guidance.
Yes, I will just do that now, actually. So this is the new provincial website. I hope that some of you had the opportunity to have a look at it. You'll see in the philanthropy and care section here, there are all sorts of resources for the care team to. Oh, there's Paul. Look at that. You look smarter there. You look thinner there, Paul.
I was before the lockdown.
Yeah, you can see there's all sorts of information here and information about the role of the almoner, the care toolbox, all with excellent downloads here. I think the forms are actually on here as well to fill in as well. So it's worth going to the website and having a look at that with all the information there. I'm sorry, Paul, I didn't mean to have a dig. Right, Craig Foster, you've been waiting for a little while. Do you want to come in? Oh, sorry, I've just muted.
Thank you, Andrew. I just wanted to rehearse some of the comments relating to Lodge and Chapter Almoners. I am the almoner for Hartington Lodge in Friends and South Lakeland Group. I am also the Chapter Almoner, which is fed by two other craft lodges. But my experience is that when I visit and contact widows or brethren, I actually record that contact in the diary. But a lot of the information I get through the secretary and the brethren. If you include brethren and companions in your work, you give them an almoner's report at each meeting or a newsletter that the secretary can send out on your behalf. It encourages brethren to give you the information that you need to enable you to do your job effectively. And I think for Paul, I think Paul's comments are very valid that some people just take a collar because they need to, the office has to be fulfilled. But if brethren are in that position and encourage other brethren and companions to work with them, it makes it a lot easier job and you can participate better. And I think the recording of visits and contact by whether it be telephone at the moment, if you record that in your diary, and then if there's any issues, like, you know, I had a brother that very challenging situation, but it's never been seen. I could show the group almoner, I've seen this gentleman on these occasions. He'd forgot about that because of the dementia, but you know, it just helps that way. If you encourage your brethren to support you, because you can support them. And that's one of the comments I wanted to make. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks, Craig. Les, you are unmuted. Sorry, it's taken a while to get to you. Do you want to come in now? Is he Les Taylor Duff? Where's he gone?
What's he gone?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me, Andrew?
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Just listening to what Craig was talking about. I'm Les Taylor Duff. I'm almoner for the Elias Ashmole chapter in Warrington. And I have found that whilst I can deal with a number of things as we are at the moment by a round robin for our companions, being told that sometimes, of course, we're overlapping with lodges as far as the widows are concerned, and that the lodge almoner
really is the person who is contacting the widows. Can you advise me, please, as to what help I can give together with lodge almoners? Thank you.
I don't understand your question. Sorry for being stupid, Les. Are you saying that your lodge operates two? Are you saying that your lodge operates two systems, where the secretary may contact the widows and you contact your widows, and you're being told why you're doing that?
No, I'm saying this. I'm the almoner for Elias Aspinall chapter in Warrington, and I led to believe that the lodge almoners are contacting the widows. So are we not doubling up as far as the chapter is concerned?
No, no, because the reason being,
can I be
right? So it's a chapter and a craft situation you're describing. You may have people in your chapters that doesn't belong to any of the groups that you are involved with. So as has been indicated by Ian, Sincerity Lodge, that communication isn't a bad thing, and if we're contacting them twice, 3 times, then we're drumming on the message. So it's not a case of doubling up. There may be people in the chapter that don't belong in your group, that for certain reasons they've joined with a friend or whatever. So no, I would always say that we will keep what we've got. Is it causing you great problems, Les?
No, not at all. I just want, because of the latest situation with the coronavirus, etc., I'm asking for advice as far as my particular position is concerned within chapter, that how can I help the lodges or other chapters, for example, with reference to the needs of our widows or the possible needs of our widows?
Well, in theory, if it is working correctly, the people that you're dealing with, the brethren and the widows, will have the contact details. If they are struggling, and indeed you will have the contact details, it's a two-way flow. So they will be contacting you saying, I need X, Y, and Z. Or, and what should have happened at the very beginning is a letter should have gone out of a communication about the provincial welfare plan, because it was realised at the time that we could be inundated with people who did need help, and that would deviate and the almoner's role of actually dealing with people in need, if you will, financially, medically, or whatever. So there are two systems running there, but we shouldn't have any brother or widow in the province on their own. They should be going through the welfare. Go on, Les.
Okay, well, thank you for that. That's a big help, and that's answered a lot of my questions. Andrew, thank you again.
No problem, thank you. Eric's got his hand up, I think, or are you just dancing? I'm not sure if you're. Let's go dancing, Eric.
Yeah, you've got Peter Mann up at the moment. Yeah, can I just go on from that just a little bit? I mean, we have in Warrington, as you know, aware, I would think, Stephen Clark, who's taken over the mantle now of pastoral care officer, i.e. the group care officer, who was appointed by myself and Paul not too long ago under the auspices of the group. The group chairman was very happy with that. And at the moment, Stephen is relatively new at the job, but I'm certain when he gets his hand in properly, you know, the question that you've asked me, it won't happen, because Stephen should have sorted that out amongst all his almoners from craft and from the chapter. So he's the man, Stephen Clark.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you. I'm just scrolling through the screens now to see if anybody else has a question or if they're waving at me. David Parker, you have your hand up. Do you want to come in?
Yeah. Can you hear me, Andrew?
Yes, we can, yes.
Yeah, I'd just like to go back to what the Almoner of Horwich and Rockhaven spoke about, submitting the forms of the widows for data protection.
Yeah.
Oh, my battery's low on my phone, but I hope I can get through this. I have received the spring-summer edition of Better Lives, and it's just one copy. Now, normally I usually get enough copies to distribute to the widows, so I assume that the other copies are actually going to the widows themselves, because I've just got one copy and I usually get 10 cents. Or
can I come in there?
Yeah.
One of the difficulties with the shutdown thing that's happened, it's caused a lot of chaos in London, because there's nobody in the office at all, so it's going to be difficult to get you an answer to that. But no, I sent to Eric Binks, who was doing the all the almoners data, and he keeps that data up to date and has done up to the last month. So we're up to when we're shut down, in effect, all the almoners that were listed up to then, all the names and addresses and the email addresses in particular were sent to London, with a view to London to send in every almoner half a dozen copies. And if an almoner needed extra ones, like you do, David, you would have rung London and said, can you send me another dozen? So it's new to me for you to get it direct and the widows to get them on their own. I don't think that's happened, but I can't be sure. I think it's something even that, well, I'll talk to Paul after the meeting now, and we'll get hold of London one way or another, and we'll come back with a definitive answer. Perhaps Peter Mann, who's here today, or one or two of the other lads may be able to help me. I don't know on that one. Peter, have you had any copies yourself?
I've just had the one copy delivered to me, Eric, nothing else.
So it looks like very much that it should have gone to the widows. Well, the widows list is so out of date, it's untrue. So we'll see what happens. We're going to have to go back on that one, David and Peter, and I'll talk to Paul after the meeting and do our very best to put what's right.
David, could I just say thank you? Presumably you've given us the list of widows, and you've not gone down by the defence of data protection. You've seen the light, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Well, thank you for that, and I will use you as an example if you don't.
I'm just flicking through the screens again. I can't see anybody waving at me at the moment.
Andrew, can I come in there?
Yes, Brian, yes.
Hello, I'm sorry, but for some reason I can't get my photograph up, so I'm sorry for people who can hear me but can't see this beautiful face.
Well, we can be thankful for small mercies, so it's... I did that joke earlier as well, but not as many people present.
Go to Eric and Paul, reference the leaflets going out to the pensioners, or the widows rather. I got the paperwork for this to go around, and they said no, they didn't want to fill in the forms. They wanted to see the almoner. They wanted personal contact. And I spoke to the PCA, and he said no, try and get them to send it. He said because they'll still have the personal contact. But now you're saying that the magazines won't be coming to me. By the way, I'm the almoner and secretary for Abercrombie Lodge, and they want a personal contact. They don't want it all by post and paperwork. They want someone to go around and say, how are you? How are you getting on? Do you need? And that's how we proceed forward with the do you need part, whether they do or they don't. But they want personal contact. And this system, what you get is taking that away from them.
No.
Ryan, both Eric and I and Alan applaud you because we fully agree with what you say. But there possibly is some parts of the system that's failing, and we know that we're not getting through to the widows. Now, ultimately, if it wasn't for what's going on now, we would have been addressing some of these problems because, quite rightly, we know they want to have the contact. It's a bit like when the people went I don't know if you went to see Esperanza when we had the almoners dinner. It's loneliness that's the biggest problem. It's not the financial side, that, okay, some of them got health problems and the like, but it's loneliness, and that's what we need to address. And that's one of the things that West Lancashire Charity wants to help with as well. So we fully agree with you saying that, but by all means, encourage them to fill the form in. Let's have the list and let's hit them a double prong, because ultimately, if we've got almoners that possibly are not performing, then it might be raised at the secretary level or possibly higher and say, well, is that guy up to the job? Is he doing what you want to do? Is he representing your lodge? Now, in defence of that almoner who might not be doing it, and I got the shock of my life when I was down, I won't name names, the charity steward got up and then the almoner got up and he got 2 collars on. And then he went as assistant secretary. So that particular lodge has got problems. So we've got to address that as well. But hopefully, if we are sending information directly to the ladies and the brethren, we're going to hit them multi-pronged. And I want to encourage the almoners to visit the people. Obviously, it can't be done now, which is an awful shame. And there will be people who are pulling their hair out that they've had no personal contact, really. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Paul. Sam SL, sorry, I presume, I don't know, but yeah, Sam.
It's Russell Stark from King David Lodge, Liverpool. I've inherited this job from somebody who thought they could do it and then suddenly found they couldn't do it. I've had no communications at all, apart from this email, recognise me as almoner, although I am collared as almoner. And I also could do with some training. And I heard earlier on that will probably come in at some point. How long will it take? Am I supposed to be receiving mail as almoner?
Right. Eric, do you want to answer that, mate?
Are you Liverpool group?
I am, yes.
Well, you've got a newly appointed, unfortunately, Stephen Roberts has just taken over the responsibility of group care officer for the Liverpool group. Now, can I make a suggestion that you make contact with Paul at some stage as a provincial Grand Almoner there, because he can take it up with Stephen directly, and because we've got to train Stephen up, and we might as well bring you in on it as well as a new almoner. I don't think, give Paul a ring and he will arrange that for you, because you certainly need some assistance. The book I was showing you before, you should have had that, and you should have been presented with that at the installation when you was installed as almoner. You should have. Now, as I said, at that stage, Stephen wasn't appointed, but he's certainly there now. It should have been Cliff Hughes, but Cliff is doing other work now for us. So I apologise on behalf of the team, but Paul will certainly put it right for us. Is that all right?
Yeah, yes, that's fine. Thank you. That's good help.
No problem.
Welcome to the team, Russell.
John Pendlebury.
Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew.
Just
yeah.
1 second, Les, we'll be with you. John Pendlebury, go.
Right. Why can't there, for all new almoners, be a general jobs description, so that they actually know what is required and what is involved in a new almoner?
There is.
Are you an almoner, John?
I'm secretary.
When you was installed as almoner.
Can I just? I know that secretaries and almoners do get involved, but almoners sometimes, my feeling is that they haven't really got a proper job description is what is required from them. Yet they know that they contact with the widows, etc., etc. But sometimes, whether they're young or old or new, I think personally, if they had a job description so they knew what was expected of them, then they would have the proper guidance from the lodge and from province.
John, before Eric blows a fuse, which group are you in?
It's Wigan.
You're a secretary.
Wigan. Yeah, I'm secretary of Wigan.
At your installations, does the local care officer? Or...
Yeah, they do.
And what does
They present them
it
with
gives a
a
brief
card.
resume. It gives a brief resume and it gives them a booklet.
That
And
is
he then
correct.
carries on and saying, you can contact the team and you will progress. So there is a job description, and it's quite simple.
Is that job description verbal, or is it via a card or a booklet?
Pardon?
Is that job description verbal, or is it by a booklet?
It's verbal at the installation.
What if an almoner is new? He has something to refer to as a reference. If it's a booklet.
At the end of the description, he usually comes in front of the master, or he should be doing, in front of the master when he's been presented his collar. He will then be read to what his duties are, and at the end of the presentation, he is given a booklet that Eric is now frantically looking for. He will, and that happens. We're pretty well slick on that one, John. I'm sorry about that. Now, that might not happen in your lodge.
I'm just in general. I'm talking general terms because there's new almoners coming in at all times.
Well, there are, and there'll be an almoner created. You know, this is like lists. I'm not a big lover of lists because as soon as it's printed, it's out of date. But your lodge is part of the ceremony now, and it also happens with charity stewards. They give a brief description of what it is, and then they're presented with a booklet and tells them what else is on, what else they're to do. So it might be your lodge doesn't do it that way, but I would hope that they do, because it's to raise the profile of the almoner. That was the whole purpose.
Yeah, thank you.
Paul, can I
Okay,
just interrupt? Sorry, the booklet and the address to the almoner is on the provincial website in the toolbox area, so you can have a look at them and download them now.
It's probably safe to say as well that if somebody is thinking about almoner or has been approached by the lodge to be the almoner, that they should be having a look at that information before they agree to accept the office as well. That they should be well aware as to what they're getting themselves in for, and not necessarily relying on the previous almoner, who may be more familiar with the old ways, shall we leave it at that, to train them up on how to do the job. I think that they need to have the newest information and the newest way of working available to them before they agree to take the office.
Well said, Andrew. You can join the team.
The job description is in both the handbook that we provide, and it's in the handbook that the Masonic Charities Foundation provide. You can get that online, but the roles and responsibilities of the almoner are clearly there in the handbook. And had you been presented with it at the installation, you wouldn't be talking to me now.
I'll just. I'm sorry, Les. We're running out of time. Really, need to start to wrap it up. Is it a quick question?
It's yes, very much so. But I'll be in touch or email as far as the handbook is concerned, because I've never seen one and been offered one. But I'll do that in the next few days. All I'm going to say is thank you very much for a good meeting, and I have to leave now because I've got to get something else done today. So
thank you.
Stay safe.
Les, can I just say, if you go onto the new website, the booklet is on the new website. You can download it on the website.
The email address.
Les.
We'll just email me afterwards, Les. We'll sort that out in a bit. Right. Just before we finish on the almoner's side of things, I'd point out that in the yearbook, you probably can't see that, but there are a couple of the fact sheets which from MCF actually in the yearbook as well, so you can go directly to those. There's the one on loneliness in particular, which I know has been mentioned, and also to the one on mental health. Both of those are printed in the yearbook, so you should. There's another way of being able to access that information, and we'll be continuing to do that. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if anybody has. Stuart Cranich, you've got your hand up. I'll just bring you in. Hopefully, it's not another bad joke.
No, it's a very, very quick question. I'm almoner in chapter, and I only look after a few widows, but I also know that those widows are looked after by an almoner in lodge. So when it came to the data protection forms, I'm assuming that the forms relate to the individual. And because I know those forms have already been signed by the widows by lodge, am I right in assuming that as almoner in chapter, I do not have to get them to sign another form?
You don't know that 100%, Stuart. The situation B is that somebody might have been refused or whatever.
I actually do, because I know, because the widows that I look after, I'm also a member of that lodge, and I'm in close contact with the lodge almoner, and I know he has had those forms signed.
Well, provided they're getting made contact and you know you're 100% covered, there's no point in getting a building twice.
That's fine. That's fine.
Inside knowledge you've got.
Robert Irwin, I'll come to you in a second. Tim Walton, you've got your hand up. Oh, sorry, is it Tim from Walton Lodge? Or
No, it's Tim Walton from Baines Lodge.
Oh, right, okay.
I'm quite fortunate in some respects. A lot of the brethren supply me with information about people that they know that need helping. And in return, I write a detailed report every month and provide it to the brethren so that they can see what's going on and what I'm doing, which they're very grateful for. And it also shows them what the outcome is of what they brought to my attention, which I think is quite important. Maybe it's something that, you know, other almoners could incorporate into their role. That's all I'm saying at the moment now.
Thanks, Tim.
I think, Tim, welcome to the care team officially. I can see your face now rather than just messaging one another. But you've got to be careful now. Eric sent me something just in the last sort of 24 hours regarding data protection and what we can and can't do in Lodge. So just bear with us for the moment, because I think an instruction will be coming out, because you might be revealing something about somebody who hasn't given you permission to say that. Not very Masonic, really, because we're caring about the people, but you can get one or two people who could come along and cause a problem for us. So we're aware of the situation there, Tim. Well done. You might still be report. Well, you see, do you report on like my lodge? They have a Zoom meeting like we're having now, and they talk about so and so. We've been in touch with them. It's this data protection business. It's fraught with problems. So we just need to bottom it, really. And I think our next person who's going to come on is probably going to tell us more than I know.
Robert, sorry.
Hi, just in case anyone doesn't know, I used to be the data protection officer for the NHS, and I was the director of legal services for them. And data protection is my main thing. We don't hide behind the data protection. It's there for protection of individuals, not as to stop us from doing a job. The question that was asked before about data protection, about it's a subject, you only need to do it once, you don't need to do it twice. So if your lodge has done it, the chapter doesn't need to do it, vice versa. If the chapter's done it, the lodge doesn't need to do it, but you need to talk to each other about that. The other thing is information. When you're getting permission to off them to share their information with London, whilst in writing is the better one, you can get it verbal, but you must record the verbal somewhere. And that's where it falls down. And if you say that, oh, I can do it verbally, 9 times out of 10, people will not record where they recorded it. So we have when somebody says Joe Blogs gave my permission on the 10th of December 2018 for me to share this information, where have you got that recorded? Because in the NHS and the big organisations, the government, they record it on their systems that such a body gave my verbal permission. So there's a defined record which is fixed. On where we're doing it, there's no defined record unless you record it on the form asking for data protection. You can put that you can give verbal permission. The person gave me verbal permission tonight on such a thing, and you record it in front of them. And then they can't come back at a later date and say, I never gave you permission. You have it written down there and then at a time and a date and a place in front of them that they saw they give that permission. So it's much easier if you can to get it written. That's why the form says that. I hope that clears things up. If you want, Paul and Eric, I will put this in simple terms for everybody, just in short bullet points.
No problem.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert. Simplicity is the best. KISS principle.
We'll wrap it up on terms of the care. So thank you to Paul and to Eric and to Alan Riley and everybody else who's contributed today. I'll hang around for a bit if anybody has any kind of secretarial stroke administration questions today. So I'll just hang around for a few minutes after that. But otherwise, thank you for joining us. We'll be back next Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Neil Ward is going to be talking about the membership and how that's the membership and recruitment, how that's been going on throughout the period of suspension and the lockdown next week. And the following week, Phil Preston is going to be here with some of the charity team talking about what's happening in terms of the festival and charity during this period as well. So we'll be back next Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Feel free to email me any suggestions in terms of what kind of thing you'd like covering in these sessions. If you've got any other questions as well, please direct them to me, andrew@provinceofwestlancs.org, or you can contact Paul Broadley at pga@provinceofwestlancs.org as well, and those will get through. So if you wish to do that, like I say, I'll hang around for the next couple of minutes. Otherwise, thank you, Paul, thank you, Eric, and I'm sure I will see you all virtually next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Keep safe, boys. Look after yourselves.
Thanks, Andrew. Bye then.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Bye.
Yes, thank you.
John Guest, you've got your hand up. Do you want to ask a question?
Yes, Andrew. I was just wondering if there's been any discussion about helping members who may be suffering financially when it comes to paying next year's subscriptions.
There hasn't as yet. We are expecting this kind of question to become more prevalent, clearly, and it's something that a lodge can choose to address on its own. But it's something that we're going to be looking at in terms of advice such as this as we move along. Obviously, there's been more kind of procedural stuff that we've been focusing on, but obviously as we move into the next season and this is going to possibly become an issue, we will be offering advice, but largely this is something that's going to be handled at the lodge level as opposed to the provincial level itself. We are we are to some extent in the hands of London when it comes to kind of fees and charges and everything like that. So we're just going to have to wait and see if anything comes out from them in the first instance regarding, you know, the fees that we charge or that somebody is charged. But we will also be offering advice in terms of what to do. I know that certain lodges are already kind of anticipating that they will have this kind of question and are taking appropriate measures sooner rather than later. But generally speaking, it's something that we'll be looking at and issuing advice in the not too distant future. I'm sorry I can't give a more comprehensive answer to the question at the moment. But,
no, that's okay.
I think that the lodge should at this stage start to think about quite what relationship they'd like with their existing brethren, and to maybe look at thinking about deferring and absorbing costs. But again, that's a matter for their individual lodge, not for the province to dictate. Certainly not for the province to dictate. But we are waiting to see if there's anything coming from London with regards to the level of fees that people are being charged. So I can't really say any more than that at this stage. All right. Sorry.
We have a Zoom meeting for we have a Zoom meeting for lodge members, and we're having one tomorrow. And a couple of people have been talking and speaking about the subscriptions. So I just wondered if there was any update I could give them tomorrow when we have our meeting. But
yeah, again, I think it's down to the lodge to have some, serious conversations within the lodge regarding, if they know of if they have identified anybody that this may be particularly relevant to. But I was speaking to another secretary yesterday on exactly this kind of thing, and I pointed out that if somebody is 50 years old, they've got a good 20 years worth of masonry left in them at least, and it would be a shame to lose them because they couldn't pay 1 year's fees. The lifetime value of a member is obviously much more significant than just 1 year's fees. And if the lodge had reserves, then maybe they could look at considering that. That is not me being prescriptive by any stretch of the imagination. I'm simply, and so the province would not dictate that at all. I'm simply offering it as a suggestion that the lodge should start to have that kind of conversation if they feel as though somebody might be in that circumstance. All right?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
No problem, thank you, bye-bye. Ian, you had your hand up. Ian Simpson, Cemetery Lodge.
Yeah, it's just I didn't want to everybody seems to be disappearing now. It's just a reminder, really. I've got me Wigan publicity officer's hat on at the moment, sure. And it's just a reminder to the secretary.
It's a very nice hat too.
Well, it fits sometimes, but not others.
It's a bit like a bald wig, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, and but I only took over recently from Barry Dickinson as the Wigan Group publicity officer. But I have noticed that I'm not getting the response that I was hoping for from the various secretaries of not just lodges and chapters, but also the various other organisations within those groups, i.e. the shooting and the bowling and the various other sort of leisure activities. So it's just a matter of reminding secretaries that we need to get that publicity out there. We're trying to recruit new members all the time. We need to have some good stories to put in. We need the copy, not only for Nuggets, but for provincial website. In my case, for the Wigan newsletter. If the secretary can contact me and let me know, it's not just about installations and having your photograph taken with the rep. It's a case of it's about other stories, life stories of members within each of the lodges and chapters as well. So I just leave that with you.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Has anybody anything else? I mean, I'm kind of conscious that we've gone on a little bit longer than we normally would. The care team. Ian, you've got your. Sorry, Neil, you've got your hand up.
As you know, all Worthing chapter is supposed to be handing its charter in November. We're now out of synchronisation of what we should be doing because we've missed one chapter meeting. If we do come out of lockdown on the 17th of July, would it be possible to get an extra meeting in September so we're on course for the November meeting, or do you think we've missed it altogether?
No. In terms of chapter, you don't actually need a dispensation to hold an emergency convocation, and certainly there's a lot fewer restrictions on what you can do at emergency convocation in the chapter, unlike in lodge. So in terms of taking a ballot or proposing that the charter is surrendered, I'm not sure if you've done that already and voted on whether it's going to be surrendered or not. But you can do that at emergency convocation if you need to.
The notice of motion was given at the February meeting that we would hand with charter in, but not voted on.
Okay, so you can do that at the next emergency convocation.
There's two extra notices of motions that we need to do. One with regards to the chapter furniture.
And one with financial assets as well.
Financial assets, yes.
Yeah, you can do those. So you can propose those at the emergency convocation, providing that they appear in full on the summons. So like you can propose somebody in writing in chapter to become a member or to be exalted, you can put more complex propositions on the summons, but certainly announcing them at the emergency convocation would be a good thing. The other element is you could deal with those on the night as well, on the actual night, but it just gets a little bit more messy then, kind of doing it all on the one night. But there's no issue there. You haven't missed the boat in terms of surrendering the charter in November. It's probably an option for us to chat away from here regarding the mechanism for that. So if you want to speak to me tomorrow or something, we can sort that out.
What would happen if the suspension isn't lifted before November?
Well, let's bridge that gap when we come to it. If and when we come to it, it's become I know it's a little bit of a get-out clause at this time, and I acknowledge that. But at the moment, as far as we are concerned, we are simply working on the information that we can work on. And that is at the moment, the suspension will end in the middle of July. And if that changes, we will obviously be issuing advice as quickly and as concisely as possible, depending on when and if circumstances beyond that change. So I'm going to dodge that question for the moment, but we can talk about some in-principle discussions tomorrow if you want to give me a ring.
No problem, thank you.
All right. Anybody else, any questions or queries before we move on? I hope that you found today useful. I know it was dominated a little bit by more than the care team that I anticipated initially, but I hope that certainly Secretaries and Scribes have got something out of it, and a bit more insight into the care team, if nothing else. So I hope that you found it useful from that point of view. If there's no other questions, then thank you very much for coming, and I hope to see you next week.